the pedal, spin the wheels. I know how to make you feel.
Hey guys, my name is Alex, and today I have another workflow guide for you, this time for my video utils workflow. And this is basically just a utility workflow that's got a bunch of different groups with different functionalities that are set up to help with various tasks, related to masks, related to videos like resizing, changing formats, doing compositing, segmenting out your subject and dancer and things like that. So if you go to my Patreon, you download the video utils workflow, you'll see this is kind of the overview. You'll see a bunch of different groups with they're all labeled for the functionality that they provide. So I'm just going to go kind of left to right here. At the top, you've got this group called Create Blur Mask. So what this group is going to do is you'll input a segmentation or a mask video, and then what you can do is you can set the color of the mask. So in this case it's red, so red is 255, black is 0. So we're grabbing the mask, and then you have this handy node called Grow Mask with Blur. What this is going to do is basically just add blurring to the edges of your mask. And this is really useful when you're doing things like compositing, because sometimes you don't want such a harsh edge on the mask because you'll get some kind of artifacts and aliasing. So adding a little bit of blur to the edges can really help make the whole composite much smoother and cleaner. So you can play around with this node, play around with the settings here, change the expansion or change the blur radius to get more or less blur. If you want, you can invert the mask so that instead of a black background and white subject, you can flip it so you have a white background and black subject. So here you can change the color and the background as well. So every time, when I'm not using a particular group, I highly recommend you go ahead and bypass it. And so that, that way you're not just running all of your different groups at the same time, and it's just going to take a long time, and you don't need that. So make sure you bypass groups that you're not using. Going to the next group over here to the right, we've got our image to batch. So this is a really simple utility that just allows you to take an input image. So in this case, I have this little image with a black background and a blue circle. And you can say, repeat images here, multiply it by the number of frames you want. So in this case, I want it to be 320 frames. You can go over here to the combine node and change the frame rate. So in this case, it's 15 frames, but you could change it to 30 frames per second. It's up to you. So this will just create a video out of a static image, and that can be useful if you're trying to do things like composite different mask videos together. All right, moving down, we've got our Resize video group. So this is pretty self-explanatory. You just input your subject video here on the left. You can specify the width and the height of the final output video. This will just go ahead and upscale it or downscale it or change the dimensions, and then you'll get your output over here on the right in this video combined. Over here we've got our interpolation group. So this is a nice little utility to just take a video that has maybe a lower frame rate than you'd like. You can see that the frame rate of your input video down here with this, FPS helper node. And then up here, you've got your rife nodes. This is what's actually doing the interpolation. And so if you change this multiplier is what's actually going to change the, how many extra frames you're generating per second. So in this case, I have a 15 FPS input video. Change the multiplier to 2, it's going to double that. So now I have an output video that it's 30 frames per second. So it just doubled the number of frames. So yeah, this is really useful. Come down here, we got our video to GIF. So this is pretty self-explanatory as well. You just input your video, hit Q, and then it will generate a GIF that you can save and upload on websites and whatnot. You can change the FPS, you can change whether to resize it, and some extra features there. Very useful. So if we go down here, we've got our preprocessor helper groups. So if you've used some of my workflows, you'll see that I actually will provide in the workflow all these different preprocessor functionalities. So, you know, if you take an input video, you input it, you hit generate, you're going to get all these different preprocessed outputs. So in this case, like open pose, I have a video over here with a dancer, and then once I hit Q, it will go through all the frames that I specified and generate the actual open pose preprocessed output. And this is useful if you just want the preprocessed outputs, but you don't want to actually have to go through one of my workflows and do all the other extra generation work that's happening. You know, it's a big process. So if you just want to focus on getting the preprocessed outputs, then this is a good way to do it. So you got open pose here. You've got depth here, so you can see on the left I have the input video, and then on the right I've got the actual output preprocessed depth video. And then finally we've got line art. So in this case I just used you know, a mask video, composite, and then over here after the line art preprocessor ran, then I get this output with line art. And then, you know, I can save all these videos and then use them as the override, upload overrides for the preprocessors in my workflows, so that you don't have to actually generate all of these every time, which can be lengthy and take a lot of compute. So those are helpful for that. We go back up here to the top, you've got this group called overlay black mask to top bottom. So this is pretty simple. What it's doing is it's just allowing you to almost essentially crop from the top or from the bottom of your input video. But instead of cropping, it actually just adds a black bar. So you'll see here, I've got this input video with these dancers, and above them there's this, you know, there's like a scene from the anime. So I didn't want that because when I'm running this video, I don't want to have, you know, the anime actually show up in the preprocessors. I don't want to get open pose or depth information from that. I just want the scene with the dancers. So in order to do that, you've got two options here. You've got bottom and top, and this lets you specify an offset in pixels to add this black bar to. So in this case, I want to keep the bottom completely the same, and then from, you know, 250 pixels from the top of the video, I want to add a black bar. So if we run this, we should see, hopefully it doesn't take that long, but you'll see in the output down here. Yeah, so you'll see basically what it's going to look like when it's finished compositing. So it basically just created this frame with the black bar. And since we're not actually doing anything from the bottom, this is all, you know, the same. So then we do our compositing. All right, there we go. So after a little bit of runtime, we get our output video here, and you can see it's got a black bar covering the top of the video, 250 pixels from the top, just like we specified. So that can be useful in certain cases where you just want to focus on the dancers or your subjects and you don't want to have extra stuff on the top or the bottom of the video. So moving to the right here, we've got this group called change mask color. And so this is just a handy little utility to change the colors of certain subject masks in your input video. So in this case, I have, you know, these two dancers here. One is red and one is green. So say I want to change the colors, you know, from red to yellow and from green to magenta. So here, you know, I've got these nodes. I've got like the output colors at the bottom. So if we run this, we should see that we're going to basically be grabbing, you know, the red mask using this node. 255 is full brightness, 0 is black. You know, then we can grab green here and blue, and you can double check that you're actually getting the right mask by previewing with this mask preview node here. All right, so once we finish rendering, you can see we've got our video with our original dancers with the same masks, but the mask colors have been changed. So we converted red into yellow and green into magenta. And of course, you can always change that here. You can change the color that you want to change the mask into. And you can also change the color that you want, that you're pulling your mask from your original color. In this case, I have it already set up to red, green, and blue. But you could change this to be yellow or magenta or whatever you need. So finally over here on the right, we have our Normalize mask color group. And so what this is going to do is very simply, it's going to take your input video, and if there's any color in it, if there's multiple dancers or and whatnot, it should be a mask video. Then it's just going to normalize all the pixels that are not black to one color. So in this case, white. And that can be useful if you need, like a basic white mask, or you want to like composite multiple mask colors into a single color. This can be a useful utility to help with that. All right, so now we move down to the middle here. So this is probably one of the most useful groups. This is the one that I probably use the most in this workflow, besides the segmentation groups, which we'll see in a bit. But essentially what this lets you do is take an input video, provide a mask for that input video, and then you can append elements from the original video onto some kind of background. So you have a few options here. So you'll see at the top here, you can specify your width and height of your output video. So in this case, 1080 by 1920. Then you can also specify things like, every nth, so like how many frames you should be skipping. So I'm using every single frame, but if you set this to 2, you'll be using every other frame, and so on. Then you've got your frame load cap. So I set this to a low number for now, just 60. It's just going to load 60 frames for the whole video. Then your skip frames, so basically how many frames should you skip from the beginning of the video. So depending on your needs, you should fill these values out first. Then go ahead and upload the video that you want to have elements in the foreground appended onto some kind of background. So in this case, I have this input video. Down here, you can see some debug information, so I can see what's the frame rate of the input video and also how many total frames does it have. Moving on to the next section, so this is your mask. So this is where you're going to be uploading your mask video. And basically everything that's white is going to be what you're extracting from the input video, and everything black is going to be kept the same. So in this case, I have a mask set up for the bassist here. And you have some options down below, which is you can invert the mask if needed. And also you can see how many frames your mask video has. Finally, in this third column, this is the background section. So this is where you can specify what you want to actually append elements from your foreground video onto some kind of background. So you have 3 options. You've got just a constant color. So right now, by default, it's set to black. If I wanted to change this to a red background, I could, set the color. In this case, it's 0 to 1. So 1 is full brightness, 0 is black. Then you've got your background video. So if you have some kind of video, you want to composite something from your foreground video on top of, a background video, and this is where you would upload that. You can also see how many frames that background video has over here. And finally, you've got a place for you to upload a background image. So if you want to take something from your foreground video and just append it onto some background static image, you can do that here as well. And to be able to change which background you're actually appending your foreground elements to, you can use this big image switch node, and you can see I've sort of labeled what inputs you have to specify and what those map to. So if I set select to 0, this is going to append your subject onto the solid color background. In this case, it's black. So here's an example of that. If I set this to 1, that's going to use the video input. So this is going to use the video background. So if I hit Q with that, there we go. So yeah, so if I specify 1, you're going to see we're appending our foreground subject using the mask onto this background, which looks like this. And finally, if we set the select to 2, we're specifying that we want this image to be the background. If I hit Q with that, then you can see now our subject is overlaid onto this image, static image background. So very useful, very powerful. You have different options for how you want to do compositing. So yeah, definitely check that out, play with the settings. Over here, we've got our face restore section. So this lets you take a video and we'll use the reactor face swap nodes to fix the face on the subject. So in this case, if I have an input video here, then I'll unbypass the first group. Then since I only have one subject dancer in this video, I'm just going to unbypass this first group here. And then finally, I'm going to unbypass the output section. So yeah, so basically input, the face you want to swap, and then the output. So if you look at this group right here, you can see that I'm going to be specifying some image. So whatever face you want to have swapped with your input subject or dancer, you would upload it right here. If I had 2 subjects in my video, like 2 dancers, for example, then I would go ahead and unbypass both of these groups. I can specify faces for each of the dancers in the scene. And you'll notice that, so basically the way this is going to work is it's going to go left to right. So starting from the left side of your video, the first dancer it finds, it will use the first image here to swap with their face. And then as it goes to the right of the scene, on the right side of the video, the dancer that's on that side will be swapped with the image in the second group here. So just keep that in mind. You might need to adjust those settings depending on which face you want on which subject in your scene. But yeah, that should just work. That is face restore. So moving on, now we're getting to one of the groups, the other groups that I use the most for the videos that I create, which is segmentation. So this is where you're going to, it's going to allow you to basically segment out or rotoscope people or objects or things in your input video, and then provide them a mask, which you can then save and use in your other workflows. So show you an example of that. First things first, unbypass the load subject video group. This is where you've got your ability to upload your input video that you want segmented. Up here, you're going to want to set your output width and height of this video. Some information about the source width and height down here. Then if you come over here, you can specify whether or not you want the segmented mask to be appended onto a black background, or if you just want the masks to basically be overlaid onto the original video. So in my case, I just want a solid black background, which is used in most of my workflows to help with masking and setting up, the subject dancer versus, what I'm actually dreaming over. So I will leave that to true. Over here, you'll see you have 3 sections. So this is red, green, and blue. So if I just had one subject in my scene that I want to have segmented or rotoscoped, I will just unbypass the first group. But if I have 2, let's say I have 2 things that I want to have segmented in this video, I'll go ahead and unbypass the second group. So then we'll have 2 different masks composited. So you can see here, you'll have this points editor. And so this is where you're going to specify points to tell the SAM2 model how to actually segment, or what specifically in your scene to segment. So initially when you run, if you haven't run this workflow before, this points editor will not have an image. So what you'll need to do is make sure that your input and this group is unbypassed. Then you'll hit Q, and it will run for a second. It'll populate the input here with the first frame of your input video. And then what you can do is you can come into the points editor and shift click to add points to the scene. And you just want to add points all the way, around your subject to make sure that all of the subject is going to be selected by the mask. And so in this case, I just want the girl for the red mask, so I'm just going to put points around her body. Once I hit run, you'll see that we generated a mask that looks correct for this particular subject. And again, this is going to be a red mask. So moving on to the green mask group, it's the same process. Basically, I'll go try and find whatever object or subject in the scene that I want to have the green mask, and I'll just shift click to add points to that object. Once I'm satisfied, I'll hit Q. If you want to delete points on whatever subject it is that you want segmented, just right click on the points and this will delete some. So if you put too many, you can also click and drag points around. You just need to make sure you put enough so that SAM2 has a good idea of what it is in the scene that you're actually trying to have segmented. So once you've put all your points, set everything up correctly, go ahead and hit Q. Make sure that you've unbypassed your segment output group as well, because this is where you're going to get your final output. And here you can see after putting the points on the girl and her drum, I've got this nice segmented video where the girl is red, her drum is green. Now I can save this video, export it, use it in some of my other workflows. So very useful. Definitely my most used utility in this video Utils workflow. So that's the whole workflow. Hopefully this helps you guys. You can go ahead again and download it on my Patreon for free. I have it pinned at the top of the page for easy access. Thank you again if you're a member of my Patreon and helping to support me. I really appreciate it. As always, if you got something out of this video, make sure to like and subscribe. Go check out my GitHub. I've got guides for all of my workflows and custom nodes in the description. So go check those out. Thank you again for watching and hope to see you guys in the next one.